because now we have to try something different. What we have done so far, we have worked with the classic Revit toolbar here with walls, doors, windows. We have tried some component, so we have tried this, the model in place, but now we are going to try something different, and it's a different approach to working with Revit. And it's a different approach to designing buildings. We can start designing buildings with walls. Okay, we have a wall, and we have 4 walls, and we have a room, and then if I create a 3D view and I place a door, so this is door, and then I go to window, and this is a window, and this is another window. Okay, so this is the classic view, and well, that's fine. But there's a different way. We can start creating buildings, not with walls, windows, not with building elements, but with shapes. And then when we are done with the shape, we will end up having a building. Okay, let me show you an example of this this building. Do you know this building? No. Well, it was, I remember when I was a student back in the, oh, a long time ago, well, this is in Bilbao, in Spain, and this is the Guggenheim Museum. So the famous Guggenheim Museum, well, there are a lot of famous Guggenheim museums. But the first one, I think it was in New York. Okay, so I'm sure you all have seen this building by this guy, Frank Lloyd Wright. And this is one of the most famous buildings of the 20th century in the world. So it's in New York, it's espiral, so we don't have flat slabs, so everything is a ramp. Well, something outstanding. And then I don't know why the Guggenheim family or the Guggenheim Foundation, they decided to create a second Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao. Where is Bilbao? Okay, so Bilbao, it's a place here in the north of Spain. So we are here in New Hampshire. Yep. So this is here in the north of Spain. Bilbao used to be the filthiest city in the world. Yeah, something like that. But I don't know why. In the 90s, they started spending money on the city, money that they didn't have or we didn't have in Spain, and now we're paying a debt. But now Bilbao is in, everybody knows it because of this building, because of the Guggenheim Museum. And that's something that we have to think about. Architecture can change the future of a city. Okay, so nobody knew this city. And because of a building, now it's famous. But sometimes it happens. Anyway, this building is unique. It was designed by Frank Gehry. Frank Gehry. Okay, this guy. And as you can see, he is famous because of this weird architecture. I think this is his last building. It's in France. It's like a tower. interesting. This is in Prague. And I think he has a building in Harvard. So this is the Harvard building. Okay, so as you can see, this guy is not the kind of guy that would use Revit as we have used Revit so far with walls and windows. So he's working with shapes, and then in those shapes we can have windows, doors, but we are not using Revit with straight walls or flat roofs or no. This is a different approach to designing a building. And well, the first building that I know of that was used or was designed using this kind of, because this is a software tool. So when I was a student, we were not using even AutoCAD. So everything was by hand. So this came up. I mean, it was in the early 90s. They came up with this idea and they started building this. They spent a lot of money for sure because they didn't know how to do it, and they developed a software just to create this. So this software, okay, so they developed something that didn't exist so far, and they created this kind of shapes, and then they divided those shapes in polygons so that they could cut all these elements. This is titanium, by the way. I think it was the first time they used titanium. Titanium in buildings. Yeah, so when you click titanium and buildings, Frank Gehry appears. Okay, why did they use titanium? I don't know, because maybe it was the most expensive material that was by that time. And okay, so nobody has done anything with titanium. We will do it. But anyway, those titanium plates, they have to be cut because all of them are different. And they needed a software to do that. And well, they ended up developing that software. And now we can use it. A freshman architecture student can use the same software that was cutting edge software in the 90s, in the early 90s. Things change. Anyway, if we want to design these kind of buildings with these kind of shapes, we cannot use the traditional tools, wall, roof, whatever. We have to do something different. Okay? And can we do that with Revit? Yes, we can. But we have to forget this. And we have this massing and site. We have used this for the topography. We have used this, but here you have the in-place mass. Okay, so if we use the in-place mass, you see that we can do these kind of shapes. So how can you use a mass? I don't know. We can create a rectangle, and we can create form, a solid form, and we create a volume. And you guys say, okay, so what? Yeah, so can't we do this with roofs and walls? Yeah, we can. But here you can, everything is editable, and then we can select different parts or different elements of the building. And now this is, can we do this with walls and roofs? And yeah, we can, but it's more flexible doing this. Now we can finish the mass. And this is not a building, or we don't have walls, we don't have roofs, we don't have anything here. We have just a weird shape. that now in massing and site, you see that here we have these tools, roof, walls, or floors. So if we click roof and we click here, we can create roof and we have a roof. And this is one of the roofs that we have in by default. And then we can edit type and we can add materials. So we can do a roof made of concrete. We can insert a new layer and we can make it thermal, and we can create a rigid insulation. We can change the thickness. Let's say that we have 8 inches of rigid insulation. Click OK, apply. And here we have a roof. And we edit type, we preview, and here we have different layers of that roof. Okay, so we have started the building in a different way. We haven't started creating walls and roofs. We have started with the massing and site, and then if we create a wall, I can select this, and this is a wall by default. And now we can edit type, and now we can add different materials here. Can we create a different wall? We can, for example, we can work with storefront with curtain walls. Well, probably we can't use this storefront exterior glazing. Only basic wall types are accepted. Okay. Curtain wall. We can't do that. Yeah. But anyway, this is a roof and a wall. Then we have a lot of issues here with connections. Yeah, so we have to be careful with that, because if we want to turn this into a building, we will have a lot of issues. Anyway, so that's how we can work with masses. If we select in place mass, we can do anything. So we can use the splines, for example, and then if we use splines, we can create the curved elements, and then we can do something like that. And if it is a closed element, I can create a form. Select this, and I create a solid form. And then with this solid form, I can do whatever I feel like, because there, if we create these splines, I can have like different points. Okay, I can finish the mass, and then I can create a roof. Well, I want to create a roof where the roof is. Create a roof, and well, we can make a roof because I selected the wall. So I create a roof, and now this is the roof. And I select this roof, and I have this with materials. Okay, so if you want to create something out of the box, something that doesn't have straight walls or flat roofs or whatever, then we need that approach. We need to use the model this in place mass, and we will end up having something like this. we can create curtain walls. In this Massingen site, we have curtain system, and even if we select this shape, yeah, so we have created a glass wall, a curtain wall, like this, and then this can be a regular wall. Glass, and this is opaque. Well, this is dangerous because we can go crazy with this, and we can end up doing this kind of architecture, which is fine, but well, this is expensive. But here first we create the shape, and then we figure out how to transform this weird shape into architecture. I mean, with walls, structure, waterproofing elements. Okay, but that's a different approach. But both approaches are correct. The only thing is that if you have clients that demand this kind of architecture, they better be filthy rich because it's quite expensive. And then, I don't know, with this kind of architecture, concepts like sustainability and energy efficiency probably don't matter. So in Kim State College, we are not committed with this kind of architecture because we are looking for something different. I mean, to create good architecture, you don't have to do this. But, well, you need to know that this world exists, and you can work with Revit to create these kind of things. Okay, so let's try to do something simple, but something that it looks like a building component. Okay, so I wouldn't use this to create buildings, but sometimes it's useful to create something like this because you want to do something special within a building. So let's try to do this something special. But my advice for this kind of architecture would be that you can be free because you see that you can do whatever you feel like, but keep things under control, because if you don't control what you are doing, then the building controls you, and it should be the other way around. So I think it's always good working or start working with grid lines. Okay, so imagine that we have 3 grid lines. One, two, well, let's say 4. And I want these grid lines to be at the same distance. So if you go to annotate, 1, 2, and 3, and we can place this somewhere. So here you see that we have 36, 36, and 40. If we click here, EQ, now the distances are the same. Okay, that's good. And then we are going to work with the grid lines in the other direction. And I would name this A. One, 2, and 3. So I'm going to annotate. Okay, EQ, and now we have the same distance. So now we have a grid. And if we have this grid, I can control what I want to do. And what do I want to do? Well, I want to do something with this mass modeling but something that I can control, something that it's not difficult to. So it would be a weird shape. So I'm not using the traditional tool for roofs or walls. But if I abide by these grid lines, I think it will be better. We don't see on the 3D view, we don't see the grid lines. We see the grid lines in the plan view and even in south or in elevations, okay? But we don't see that grid line in 3D views. And I think we have to work in 3D view. So that's the challenge of this way of designing, because we have to work in the 3D view. So that way we have to memorize how many grids we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have A, B, C, D. It's quite easy to memorize. But now I want to, okay, so let's work with massing and site, in place mass. And we have to set the plane. So we are going to start with the numbers. Okay, so I'm going to set this. And here you see that we have the levels, and here we have the grids. So I'm going to set the grid 1. And now I'm working on grid 1. So every line, if you see here, we are working in a vertical plane. So we can create a line like this. Okay? And I'm going to use the left view. Then I want to set a different grid, let's say grid 2, and I want another line like this. Then I set grid 3, and I set a different line. And then I set grid 4 with another line here. Okay, so apparently we have 4 lines, but they are in different planes. If we move in 3D, we see that we are in different planes. And if we go to the top view, these 4 lines are at the same distance because we are working on these grid lines. Okay, so we are free, but yeah, we abide by some rules. And what are the rules? The grid lines. Yeah, within the grid line, I can do whatever I feel like. But I know that these 4 lines are in perpendicular planes. What can I do now? If I click modify and I select 1, 2, 3, and 4 lines, and I create a solid form, this is what happens. And I finish mass. Okay. Well, what is this? Is this a roof? If we want this to be a roof, I can create a roof out of this create roof. And now it's a solid roof with all the layers that we have created before. Okay, so now this is an architectural element. And what if, can I create now walls? Yes, I can. I can create a wall. And now with the walls, I can be free. I can create a wall with a circle. Or I can create another wall with that spline. Where is this spline? And on the 3D view, I have walls, I have my shape, and I can attach those walls to my roof. Okay. Well, this is a different kind of architecture, and we can end up modeling, let's say, Ronshan. Okay. So I assume that you know this building. This building was designed by Le Corbusier in the 50s. So it was like a revolution. How can you do that? They didn't have even software. They didn't develop software to do this. Okay, so they had to figure out how to work with this kind of shapes. Now we can do that easily with this tool. We can do this in 5 minutes. Okay, but that's a different approach, and this is a nice strategy because well, we don't go crazy. We can create this shape because first we created this, and now just by creating that grid, we know where we are. So we know that this weird shape is matching this rectangle here. So within this rectangle, we are under this roof. And if we are under this roof, I know that whatever I do here, these walls, I can end up attaching this wall to that roof. I cannot do that the other way around. I cannot start creating the walls and then trying to adapt the roof shape to this. This is not the way we work. And now what if on level 1, what if I create another wall that now I can create this storefront here. And this is a curtain wall. And I can attach a curtain wall to this. Okay, so now we have glass. And this is interesting because we are not creating windows, we are creating openings. And this is what modern architecture is about. Okay, so the classic way to design things, it's about we have a wall. No, I don't want a wall. I want a wall. And then I want a window. Okay, here I don't have walls and windows. I have openings. Okay, so the opening, the glass, is between these two walls. And the wall is something that goes from the floor until the roof. Okay, so that's a different concept. We are working with masses. We are working with volumes. We are not working with elements. So this is a new, or not a new approach, but this is a different approach. With this kind of approach, we will end up having houses like okay, this, with a wall, a window, a roof. But with this approach, we have buildings like this. So in this approach, this is not a window; it's an opening. So we can go through this because this is the space that we have between two different walls, and the walls are attached to that shape that we have here. So again, this is what modern architecture is about. If you look at the buildings that we like or we should like because we are architects and we live in the 21st century, we have this concept. We don't have, well, these are windows. So we have a wall here and we open windows. So we can combine both. So we can have the traditional window here and we can have the modern opening to enter the building. But this is something that you have to understand, especially if you are working with design. In design courses, we always mention when we are starting a design that you need to feel free. So that's why using Revit at the beginning is not a good option for design, because especially using Revit in this way, using Revit in the traditional way with walls. If you are using Revit with these kind of shapes, well, that will be a different story, because you are not even designing a building. You don't know a lot of things about this building, but you know that you have this idea that you want a roof, and then you want walls that are not straight, and then you don't want a door like this. So that would be a failure. Okay, so if we have a building like that and we end up having doors like this, well, this is something that doesn't go well with this kind of architecture. Two different approaches, but we need to master this. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to delete all this. We still have the grid line. And once we have the grid line, we can do anything. So let's work with a 3D view. Let's work with massing and site. In place mass. The most important thing is to set. Now we are working with the letters. So we are going to set grid A. And I'm going to use this tangent and arch. Massing inside. In place. Set this to grid A. Okay, so this is the this is the grid A, and I'm going to use this tangent. Start with a line, and then with a tangent and arch. I don't know why this option is not. Okay, let's work with something like this, and I'm working with this shape here, and then on grid D, I'm going to do the opposite. Okay, now I select this and this. I create a solid form and I have a roof like this. I finish mass and now I can create a roof. As you can see here, we can select different parts and then I can create a roof out of this part. And now I can create the curtain system here and here. We create the system. Okay, so it's very flexible and I think it works quite well. And for level 1, if we want structural elements, so we can always go to architectural column, and that's why we have the grid, because we can make the most of the grid. And then on the 3D view, we have structural elements and we can attach these structural elements to the roof. Okay, so now it's something that it's feasible because we are apparently it's something complicated. It's something that it doesn't follow any rule, but it does follow the simple rule that we have grid lines and we have structural elements at the intersection of these grid lines, and these weird patterns are following or are matching some of the grid lines. In this case, the A, B, C, D. And following this kind of architecture, I can find many examples. We can create a lot of architectures, a lot of shapes that probably we don't know. We don't do it because we don't know how to do it. Well, now with Revit, it's easy. We can figure out how to create those shapes with Revit, and then we can turn these shapes into structural construction elements. Okay. There's another. It was a nice building in Madrid, in my city, and that building was torn down. Well, it's a sad story, but it was something outstanding because that building was built in the 50s. So it was like, how could they do this? Well, they could do this because they are just twisting different shapes, and then they are creating these masses between these two shapes. But again, there's a rule. You can see this, you can say, okay, I don't understand anything. I don't know how this building can be designed because it's everything is twisted, everything is weird. Well, if you abide by simple rules, you can do it. So let's work on level 1. So let's work with massing and site, in place mass, and now we are going to use levels. Okay, so we set this on level 1, and we create a square. Let's say a square 40 by 40. Now I set this on level 2, And now I create another shape. Another square, 40 by 40. And then on this 3D view, you see that we have two different elements. I want to rotate all these. Uh, 45. You go. And now I select the first shape, the second, create form. So now I have created that shape. And if I go to level 2, in view range, I select unlimited. I don't see where it is. Okay, if I create a wall, storefront, I start on level 2 up to roof. Oh, because, okay. So all this has to go from level 1 to level 2. Level 1 to level 2. There you go. Okay, so this is it. So basically we have this shape, we have two twisted squares, and then we have a curtain wall connecting those squares. And that's it. So everything is easy if we know the rules. And what is the rule here? If we look at this, we only need to twist two squares, rotate 45 degrees the second one. Then we have this mass connecting these two squares, and then we have a curtain wall on the top of this.